Commander Diana Frost stood before the Galactic Council's immense chamber, her weathered uniform a stark contrast to the ornate robes of the assembled alien dignitaries. The massive holographic display behind her showed the latest devastation, the Centauri colonies reduced to cosmic dust, their 15 billion inhabitants erased in mere hours. The Varaxians had appeared 18 months ago, emerging from the unknown regions of space. They weren't interested in conquest or resources, they simply destroyed. Every attempt at communication had failed. Every offer of surrender had been met with annihilation. 17 species had already fallen. Council leader Xyrix, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's soft light, spoke with calculated precision. The numbers are undeniable. The Varaxians' technological superiority is absolute. Their fleet size exceeds our combined forces by a factor of 6. We have lost 42% of our military capacity in 18 months. Diana's jaw tightened. She knew what was coming. The Council hereby decrees an immediate cessation of all military resistance, Xyrix continued. All remaining forces will withdraw to designated sanctuary zones. We will preserve what we can of our civilizations. The chamber erupted in murmurs, not of protest, but of relief. Diana saw it in their eyes, the comfort of finally giving up, of accepting the inevitable. Her hand curled into a fist at her side. Humanity rejects this decree. Her words cut through the chamber like a plasma blade. Xyrix's crystalline form flickered, the equivalent of a raised eyebrow among his species. Commander Frost, this is not a negotiation. The numbers dash. The numbers show we die either way, Diana interrupted. The Varaxians don't accept surrender. They don't take prisoners. They destroy. The only difference is whether we die fighting or die running. A Meridian elder, his gas cloud form swirling with agitation, spoke up. Your species' notorious stubbornness is not a military strategy, Commander. The Varaxians have never been stopped. They cannot be stopped. Diana stepped forward, her boots echoing in the suddenly silent chamber. They've never faced humanity. We don't believe in unwinnable scenarios. This is not one of your human action films, Xyrix said, his tone carrying what might have been pity. This is reality. The Varaxians have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours. And yet here we stand. Diana gestured to the tactical display. While other forces retreat, our fleets have held the Neptune defense line for 3 months. We've even pushed them back at Europa. Minor victories that cost you half your ships, another counselor interjected. Every ship, every soldier knew the cost, Diana countered. We choose to fight not because we're stubborn, not because we're brave, but because it's the only way our species can live with itself. We'd rather die on our feet than live on our knees. Xyrix's crystalline form pulsed with evident frustration. Commander, humanity is part of this council. You will comply. We joined this council to be part of something greater, Diana cut in. To help build a better galaxy. If the council chooses to run, that's your right. But humanity will stand its ground. We'll fight alone if we have to. She turned to leave, then paused at the chamber's threshold. And to any species who still believes in fighting for their existence, our lines are open. We might die, but we'll die free. As the chamber doors closed behind her, Diana allowed herself a small smile. In the reflection of the polished floor, she saw several younger council members watching her departure with something new in their eyes. Hope. On the bridge of her flagship, the UES Defiant, Diana received the official notification of humanity's expulsion from the Galactic Council. Her XO, Thomas Chen, stood at her side as she read it. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. Diana looked out at the stars, at the distant flashes of light that marked the Neptune defense line. We'll find out soon enough. The Varaxians will hit us with everything now. No more testing our defenses. They'll come to wipe us out. The crew's ready, Thomas said. All of humanity is ready. Diana nodded. Humanity had always been at its best when backed into a corner. Send word to all commands, Operation Thermopylae is in effect. We hold the line. No matter the cost. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, and Diana Frost intended to teach the Voraxians a lesson about human determination they'd never forget. If they lived long enough to learn it. Fleet Admiral Harrison Reed watched the tactical display aboard the UES Thermopylae, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic readouts. The Neptune defense line stretched before him, humanity's last major defensive position before Earth. 300 ships, the remains of humanity's space force, arranged in a formation that would have made ancient naval commanders proud. Voraxian fleet emerging from FTL, Lieutenant Raj Patel announced, his fingers dancing across the sensor controls. Multiple signatures. They're bringing everything, sir. Harrison didn't need the sensors to see it. The void ahead was filling with Voraxian vessels, their black hulls seeming to drink in the starlight. Not hundreds of ships. Thousands. Well, Harrison muttered, they certainly got the message that we're not running. Commander Diana Frost's voice came through on the command channel. Admiral, Defiant is in position. All defense platforms are operational. Status of the civilian evacuation? Harrison asked, though he already knew the answer. Still ongoing, Diana replied. We need at least 3 more hours to get the last transports clear of the solar system. Harrison straightened his uniform. Then we give them 3 hours. All units, battle stations. This is what we trained for. The Voraxian ships moved with their characteristic precision, spreading out into attack formations. They had no need for feints or tactical subterfuge, their overwhelming numbers made such things unnecessary. Enemy fleet launching first wave, Raj reported. Multiple torpedo signatures detected. Launch countermeasures, Harrison ordered. All ships, maintain formation. Let them come to us. The space between the fleets erupted in silent explosions as human point defense systems engaged the incoming torpedoes. Some got through, detonating against shield barriers, but the line held. Then the Voraxians themselves arrived. Their ships moved like a tide of darkness, energy weapons painting the void with deadly light. Human vessels answered with railgun fire and plasma torpedoes, the carefully planned kill zones turning space itself into a death trap. Cruiser Division 6 reporting heavy damage, Diana's voice came through, tight with tension. They're targeting our flanks. Redirect Destroyer Squadron 3 to reinforce, Harrison commanded. Keep them contained in the kill zones. For 2 hours, the battle raged. Human ships fought with everything they had, using the gravity wells of Neptune's moons for tactical advantage, turning their superior maneuverability against the Voraxians' brute force. But still they died. Admiral, Raj's voice was grim, we've lost 30% of our combat effectiveness. The line is starting to buckle. Harrison studied the tactical display. The Voraxians were pressing harder, sensing weakness. But something wasn't right. Their attacks, while overwhelming, lacked their usual surgical precision. They're not used to this, he realized aloud. They're not used to an enemy that hits back. A massive explosion lit up the tactical display as one of the defense platforms went dark. Sir, Diana called, we can't hold them much longer. The civilian ships still need 40 minutes. Harrison made his decision. All ships, execute Protocol Omega. Prepare for close-quarters engagement. Diana's voice crackled through the comm, sir, at that range dash. They'll tear us apart, yes, Harrison finished. But they'll have to slow down to do it. That's 40 minutes we need. Understanding dawned in Diana's voice. All ships, acknowledge Protocol Omega. It's been an honor. The human fleet changed formation, ships accelerating directly toward the Voraxian lines. It was insanity. No species had ever attempted to fight the Voraxians at point-blank range. "Sir," Raj reported, voice steady despite everything, "enemy fleet is reducing speed. They're actually falling back." Harrison allowed himself a grim smile. "They don't understand sacrifice, Lieutenant. They don't comprehend an enemy willing to die to achieve their objective." The battle became a knife fight in space. Human ships, now too close for the Voraxians to bring their superior numbers to bear effectively, struck with desperate fury. The Thermopylae shuddered as enemy fire hammered its shields, but Harrison held his ground. "Civilian transports report jump preparation complete," Diana announced. "They're away." "We did it, sir." Harrison nodded, watching as more red dots vanished from his tactical display. They'd saved the civilians, but at a terrible cost. Yet even as his fleet died around him, he saw something unprecedented: the Voraxian advance had stopped. "All surviving ships," he broadcast, "emergency jump to fallback positions. We've done what we came to do." As the remaining human vessels disappeared into FTL, Harrison looked one last time at the tactical display. They'd lost over 60% of their fleet, but they'd achieved something no other species had: they'd forced the Voraxians to retreat. Back on Earth, in the underground command center beneath Geneva, the Strategic Command watched the battle data pour in. General Laura Chen studied the casualty reports with a heavy heart, but her voice was firm as she addressed the assembled leaders. "The Neptune defense line is lost," she announced. "But we've proven something today. The Voraxians can be fought. They can be hurt. And most importantly, they can be surprised." She brought up the tactical analysis. "They've never faced an enemy that would sacrifice everything to achieve their objective. Their entire strategy relies on overwhelming force and the enemy's will to survive. Today, we showed them that humanity's will to protect our own is stronger than our will to survive." The room was silent as the implications sank in. They had lost the battle, but in doing so, they had discovered something crucial about their enemy. The Voraxians could be beaten. They just had to find the right way to do it. Commander Diana Frost stood in the war room of Earth's last underground command center, studying the holographic display of known space. Too much of it glowed red, Voraxian-controlled territory. But something had changed since the Battle of Neptune. The enemy's advance had slowed. "They're being more cautious now," Dr. Priya Patel observed, her dark eyes tracking movement patterns across the display. "The Neptune defense showed them we're different. They're actually taking time to analyze our capabilities." "Time we desperately need," Diana agreed, but before she could continue, an alert flashed across the display. "Multiple ships dropping out of FTL," Lieutenant Raj announced from his station. "Unknown configurations, wait. They're broadcasting on old Council frequencies." The main screen filled with an unexpected sight. The speaker was Nexari, their crystalline form shimmering with internal light, but unlike the Council members' ornate appearances, this one bore the marks of battle. "I am Captain Zwextal of the Nexari Resistance," the figure announced. "We saw what you did at Neptune. We've come to fight." Diana exchanged glances with Dr. Patel. The Nexari were supposed to be in the Council's designated safe zones, waiting out the war. "Captain," she responded carefully, "the Council ordered all species to withdraw." "The Council does not speak for all," Zwextal replied. "We are the ones they left behind. The colony's too small to evacuate, the ships too few to matter. We watched you stand against the darkness. Now we stand with you." More signals began streaming in. A flotilla of Cloud Weaver ships, their organic hulls rippling like Aurora Borealis. A battle group of Sylph Raiders, their vessels barely larger than human fighters. Species Diana had never even seen before, all coming forward. They're all refugees, Dr. Patel whispered, scanning the incoming data. Survivors from fallen worlds, abandoned outposts. We have no experience fighting together, Diana warned the assembled aliens. No common protocols, no shared training dash. But we have something better, a new voice cut in. A Cloud Weaver commander, her form shifting like living mist. We have nothing left to lose. Like you, we choose to die on our feet. Diana felt something she hadn't experienced since before the war, hope. Very well. All ships, transmit docking coordinates. Welcome to Earth's last stand. The integration wasn't easy. Each species had their own tactics, their own ways of war. The Nexari preferred long-range crystal beam weapons that would overload human targeting systems. The Cloudweaver's organic ships could literally dissolve and reform to avoid damage, but couldn't maintain formation. The Sylph Raiders were practically suicidal in their attack patterns. But they learned from each other. Human tactical flexibility combined with Nexari precision. Cloudweaver adaptability enhanced by Sylph speed. In the simulator battles, they began to function not as desperate refugees, but as a coherent fighting force. They're calling it the Liberation Fleet, Dr. Patel told Diana one evening, weeks into the training. Did you know the Sylph have a prophecy about this? They believe that in their darkest hour, they would find strength in the strong hearts of others. Diana watched through the observation window as human engineers worked alongside Nexari crystal shapers, modifying Earth vessels to carry hybrid weapons. We're not their salvation, Priya. We're just as scared as they are. That's exactly why they follow you, Priya insisted. You showed them that being afraid doesn't mean giving up. The first real test came sooner than expected. A Varaxian scout force, larger than usual, emerged near Mars. They had clearly detected the alien ships gathering around Earth and came to investigate. The Liberation Fleet met them head-on. Human cruisers formed the backbone of the defense, while Sylph Raiders darted through enemy formations, their strange drives confusing Varaxian targeting systems. Nexari beam weapons crystallized Varaxian hull plates, making them brittle enough for conventional weapons to shatter. Cloudweaver ships phased through enemy fire to deliver point-blank attacks. For the first time, the Varaxians retreated not because they had achieved their objective, but because they were losing. In the aftermath, Diana found Captain Zwyxtal in the observation dome, his crystalline form reflecting the stars. Your people fought well, she said. We learned from watching you at Neptune, Zwyxtal replied. The Varaxians expect us to value survival above all else. When we show them we value something more, they don't know how to respond. Diana nodded. But they'll adapt. They'll come back stronger. Let them come, Zwyxtal's form pulsed with determination. We are no longer alone. We are no longer afraid. Word spread. More ships arrived daily, not mighty dreadnoughts or massive fleets, but the cast-offs, the forgotten, the ones the Council had deemed expendable. Each brought something unique, techniques, technologies, knowledge the Varaxians had never encountered because they had never considered these, lesser, species worth studying. Dr. Patel's research team worked around the clock, combining these disparate technologies in ways their original designers had never imagined. The Nexari's crystal tech merged with human AI systems. Cloudweaver organic ships learned to carry Sylph weapon arrays. We're changing the rules of the game, Priya explained during a briefing. The Varaxians based their strategy on fighting conventional forces. We're building something they've never seen before. Diana looked out at the growing fleet, at the impossible alliance of outcasts and survivors. They thought fear would break us, she said. Instead, it brought us together. But even as hope grew, the enemy was moving. The Varaxians had noticed the gathering at Earth, and this time, they would not underestimate their prey. The real test of the Liberation Fleet was about to begin. Dr. Priya Patel hadn't slept in 36 hours, but she couldn't stop now. The holographic displays in her laboratory pulsed with data from 100 battles, every recorded encounter with the Voraxians analyzed down to the quantum level. Something was there, just at the edge of understanding. "You're going to burn yourself out," Commander Diana Frost said from the doorway, carrying 2 cups of synthetic coffee. "I'm close," Priya muttered, accepting the cup without looking away from the displays. "Look at this pattern. Every time we surprised them, every time we did something unexpected, there's this energy signature in their ships." Diana studied the readouts. "Some kind of feedback?" "More than that." Priya pulled up footage from the Neptune battle. "See how their formations change when we launched the close-range attack. The energy ripple spreads through their entire fleet almost instantly. Some kind of command and control system?" "No," Priya's eyes lit up. "It's them. The Voraxians aren't just coordinated, they're connected. Their entire fleet operates as a single organism." Captain Zwyxtal entered the lab, his crystalline form humming with interest. "Like a hive mind?" "More sophisticated," Priya explained. "It's why they're so effective against conventional forces. They don't need to communicate orders or coordinate attacks. Every ship knows exactly what every other ship is doing." "That's not a weakness," Diana pointed out. "That's why they're unstoppable." "No system is perfect," Priya insisted. She brought up new data, collected from their recent skirmishes. "Look what happens when we combine tactics they've never seen before. The Sylph Raiders' quantum drives, the Cloudweavers' phase shifting, human unpredictability, it creates chaos in their network." Zwyxtal's form pulsed with realization. "They can't process multiple unknown variables simultaneously." "Exactly." Priya expanded the display. "Their hive mind is incredibly powerful, but it's also rigid. It expects patterns, predictability. When we throw too many unknowns at them at once, the system starts to break down," Diana finished, beginning to understand. "But we've hit them with everything we have," Zwyxtal noted. "They adapt. Because we're still fighting like separate forces," Priya explained. "We need to truly combine our technologies, create something their hive mind can't categorize or predict." She pulled up schematics of a human cruiser. "What if we integrated Nexary crystal tech into our hull structures? Not just as weapons, but as a way to redirect energy? Combined with Cloudweaver phase-shifting technology. Our ships could become quantum ghosts," Diana breathed. "Existing in multiple states simultaneously. The Voraxian hive mind wouldn't be able to predict our movements because we wouldn't technically be in any one place," Zwyxtal added, his crystalline form vibrating with excitement. Word spread through the Liberation Fleet. Engineers and scientists from every species worked around the clock, integrating technologies in ways never before attempted. Human ships were rebuilt with crystalline lattices throughout their hulls. Cloudweaver organic computers merged with human AI systems. Sylph quantum drives were modified to work with larger vessels. The first test came 3 weeks later. A single modified destroyer, the UES Chimera, faced off against a Voraxian patrol. As the enemy ships approached, the Chimera activated its new systems. The effect was immediate. The destroyer seemed to split into multiple quantum states, each version of the ship existing simultaneously. When the Voraxians fired, their weapons passed through phantom images. The Chimera's return fire came from impossible angles, its crystalline hull redirecting energy in ways that defied conventional physics. The patrol broke formation for the first time anyone had ever witnessed, their hive mind unable to process what it was seeing. The Chimera destroyed 3 ships before the others retreated. "It's not just about the technology," Priya explained during the victory briefing. "It's about impossible combinations. The Voraxians think in patterns, in predictable cause and effect. We're showing them something that shouldn't exist, ships that are both solid and phased, weapons that work by principles their hive mind can't categorize. How quickly can we modify the rest of the fleet? Diana asked. That's the best part, Priya smiled. Every species brings something new to the equation. The more we combine our technologies, the more unpredictable we become. But even as hope spread through the Liberation Fleet, a new concern emerged. The Varaxians had gone silent. No attacks, no probes, no patrols. They're gathering their forces, Diana told the fleet commanders. They've recognized us as a true threat now. The next time they come, it will be with everything they have. Let them come, HFY said, speaking for all of them. We are no longer prey hiding in the shadows. We are something new, something they've never faced before. Dr. Patel looked out at the assembled fleet, at the impossible combinations of technology and species working as one. They thought their greatest strength was their unity, she said quietly. But we've found something stronger, unity born of choice, of different peoples coming together not because they're forced to, but because they choose to. The final battle was coming. The Liberation Fleet had their weapon, their strategy. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. The Varaxian armada emerged from hyperspace like a tide of darkness, more ships than anyone had ever seen in one place. The Liberation Fleet sensors struggled to count them all, thousands upon thousands of vessels, stretching across the void in an endless wave of destruction. Commander Diana Frost stood on the bridge of the modified UES Defiant, now a hybrid of human engineering, Nexary crystal tech, and Cloudweaver organic systems. The tactical display showed their own forces, barely 800 ships, but each one transformed into something that defied conventional physics. They brought their entire force, Captain HFY observed from his crystalline command interface. Every ship, every warrior. Good, Diana replied. That means we only have to win once. Dr. Priya Patel's voice came through the command channel. All ships report quantum matrix synchronization complete. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Diana took a deep breath. Everything they had learned, everything they had built, came down to this moment. All ships, execute Operation Babel. The Liberation Fleet split into formations that seemed to defy spatial logic. Human cruisers phased between quantum states, their Nexary crystal hulls refracting energy in impossible ways. Cloudweaver vessels merged and separated like living mercury. Sylph raiders left quantum echoes in their wake, each one capable of delivering a killing blow. The Varaxians struck first, their hive mind coordinating a massive alpha strike designed to overwhelm any defense. But the Liberation Fleet wasn't there, and was everywhere at once. Weapons fire passed through phantom images while real ships struck from impossible angles. Their hive mind is trying to compensate, Priya reported, monitoring the energy patterns. Pushing their quantum processing to the limit. Keep increasing the chaos. Diana watched as the battle unfolded in ways that no conventional tactical display could properly show. Ships existed in multiple states simultaneously, weapons fire curved through dimensional shortcuts, and space itself seemed to ripple with quantum instabilities. The Varaxian fleet's perfect formation began to waver. Their hive mind, faced with too many impossibilities to process, started showing signs of strain. Ships fired at shadows while real threats slipped past their defenses. But the enemy's numbers were still overwhelming. Port section reports heavy casualties, Lieutenant Raj called out. The Varaxians are adapting, trying to brute force their way through our quantum states. They're desperate, HFY observed. Their hive mind can't predict us, so they're falling back on pure overwhelming force. Diana saw it too, the Varaxians were abandoning their usual precision in favor of saturating space with weapons fire. They would destroy everything to eliminate what they couldn't understand. Priya, Diana called, what's the status of the hive mind? Stressed but stable, Priya replied. We need something more, something they absolutely cannot process. Diana made her decision. All ships, execute Protocol Omega Quantum. Zwextal's crystalline form pulsed with alarm. Commander, that maneuver hasn't been tested. The phase synchronization alone could tear our ships apart. We're out of options, Diana said. Everyone knows the risks. Execute. Throughout the Liberation Fleet, ships began a complicated quantum dance. Human vessels synchronized their phase states with Cloudweaver ships, while Nexary crystal matrices channeled and amplified the quantum effects. Sylph raiders wove patterns that seemed to tie space itself into knots. The effect rippled across the battlefield. Hundreds of ships, acting as one, created a quantum event that defied the fundamental laws of physics. They existed everywhere and nowhere, their very presence a mathematical impossibility that the Varaxian hive mind couldn't ignore or process. On the Defiance Bridge, systems screamed warnings as reality itself seemed to flex. Hive mind showing critical instability, Priya reported, her voice tight with tension. Their network is trying to process our quantum state and failing. It's creating a cascading feedback loop. Diana watched as the impossible happened. The Varaxian fleet, for the first time in known history, began to break apart. Ships fired randomly, fled without purpose, or simply shut down as their hive mind collapsed under the weight of too many paradoxes. All ships, fire everything you have, Diana ordered. Don't let them recover. The Liberation Fleet struck with everything they had. Human railguns fired phase-shifted projectiles that ignored shields. Nexary crystal beams created recursive energy loops that fed back into Varaxian power systems. Cloudweaver ships literally merged with enemy vessels, their organic technology corrupting Varaxian systems from within. The battle became a rout. Without their hive mind to coordinate them, the Varaxian ships were just machines, powerful but predictable. Some tried to flee, others fought on with primitive programming, but their defeat was total. Hours later, Diana stood in the observation dome, watching as cleanup operations began. The space around them was filled with debris, the remnants of the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever seen. The last Varaxian ships are jumping out of the system, Raj reported. Long-range sensors show their remaining forces are in full retreat across all sectors. They're running, Zwextal said, his tone wondering. They don't know how to fight without their hive mind. Without their perfect unity, they're nothing. No, Priya corrected, joining them. They just discovered that true strength doesn't come from forced uniformity. It comes from diversity, from the kind of unity that's chosen freely. Diana looked out at the Liberation Fleet, human ships scarred but proud, Nexary vessels gleaming with internal light, Cloudweaver organic hulls rippling with victory patterns, Sylph raiders dancing through the debris fields. Different species, different technologies, different ways of thinking, all choosing to stand together. The Council thought survival meant running away, Diana said. They never understood that sometimes you have to risk everything to save what matters most. What happens now? Zwextal asked. Diana smiled. Now we rebuild. Together. And we make sure the galaxy never forgets what happens when the forgotten and the overlooked decide to stand their ground. The war was over. The Varaxians, stripped of their mythical invincibility, retreated to the depths of space. The Council would eventually emerge from hiding, ready to reclaim their authority, but they would find a changed galaxy. The Liberation Fleet had shown that true power came not from technology or numbers, but from the strength found in unity despite differences. And at the heart of it all was humanity, not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they had been the first to stand up and say, no, when the galaxy said to run. They had shown that impossibility was just another word for something that hadn't been tried hard enough. The stars seemed brighter somehow, full of possibility rather than threat. The galaxy was entering a new age, one built not on fear and submission, but on courage and cooperation. An age that began because humanity chose to fight.